50 years ago, I know most of you are not that old. I'm not either. But 50 years ago, family looked a lot different than it does today. Now, I grew up in Pennsylvania, up in kind of out in the sticks. Go Steelers. Hope they win today. They didn't do too good last week. Sorry. But anyway, moving on. I grew up kind of in the country, I guess, and I don't remember any friends having parents who were divorced. That was my situation. Now, some of you may have grown up in different places, and so divorce was, but for us, that was just not even like we couldn't, we didn't think about it. It wasn't on our radar at all. And so family looks different now than it ever has. And there are a lot of different versions of family. And so when we talk about family and we talk about parenting, here's what happens. And so I want you to be prepared, is that regret starts to rise up. Guilt starts to rise up. Kind of I wish I'd have done this differently. Some of you have kids that are grown and gone. They're not in the house anymore. And you might feel a little bit of guilt. I want to encourage you, don't check out of this series and say, well, I'll come back to 5 after this series is over because I don't want to. You have great influence. We'll talk about that later. But don't check out. Those of you who have young children, or maybe you're expecting, because we have a lot of expecting mothers, and you're in a great place. But every stage has its challenges, and so I just want you to understand, I want to lay that foundation of understanding. I'm not out to hurt anybody's feelings this morning. I'm not out to judge. I'm not out to make you feel guilty or make you feel regret. And I'll be honest with you, I feel regret in my parenting. I was watching a parenting series videos that we're going to be starting in January. And watched it last week. And I got done watching it, and I had a lot of feelings of regret. I thought, man, I wish I'd have done more of this or less of this. And so it's very common for us to feel that regret. I don't know if you ever go back and look at pictures of your kids when they were newborns and as they were growing. You start to feel like, man, I wish I would have done more of this or that. But regret is a very real thing. And it's not my intention to stir up regret or guilt in you, okay? But I want to talk about something that I believe is very important. Another thing I want to say is sometimes when the pastor talks about parenting, everybody looks at the kids. And they're here this morning. Go ahead and raise your hands, kids. Everybody looks at the pastor's kids, and they're like, well, let's see what kind of example, They're not perfect. You already know that, right? I'm not perfect. So my goal today is not to show you what a perfect family looks like. That's the whole reason for the title, My Dysfunctional Family. Because we are all dysfunctional to some degree. And we'll talk about why we are that way. But it's not to hold them up and say, these are the perfect kids, because they're not. And I don't want them to bear that pressure. I think there's a lot of times, there's a joke about the pastor's kids being the worst kids in the church. That's anyway, I don't want to get on that soapbox, but just let's not put pressure on my kids. Let's talk about parenting, and let's, if you're feeling regret, if you're feeling guilt, you're in good company. Because I think a lot of people wish they could do things differently if they had the opportunity. So this morning, we're in the first week of 5 weeks in this message series. And you can go on Facebook and get all the message titles. But next week, we're talking about, the title of my message is, I'm Losing My Marbles. How many of you felt like you lost your marbles? All right. So we're going to talk about losing your marbles next week. And but family is very important. This is such an important subject for us to talk about. No matter where you're at, whether you are single, whether you are married with kids, whether you're a single parent, whether you're a blended family, whether you're a traditional family, whether your kids are grown and gone off, you're a grandparent now or looking at being a grandparent soon. No matter where you're at in this, you can learn a lot of valuable information. And for those of you who are single and have no kids and you are the perfect parent, you can even be more of a perfect parent after you learn all this stuff, right? Until you have yours. But family is such a vital part of our lives and who we are. See, family, and this is something I want you to walk away with this morning. Family is God's invention. Family is important. Family is like an incubator. It's a place, it's an environment, it's a perfect environment that God designed. He invented it for us to learn things like character, love, conflict resolution. And you thinking, conflict resolution? I got conflict, but I ain't got the resolution. But this is an environment for our kids to learn. Was an environment for us to learn. It is an incubator for life. Now, yeah, there's struggles. And today we're going to talk about one of those struggles. There's two that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about the other one next week. The struggle that we're going to talk about this week is our culture. Next week we're going to talk about time. But the struggles that we face. So our culture, it's a struggle that we have. God's invented this perfect environment to learn. See, families are the microcosm of communities, right? It's the microcosm of the church. If we have strong families, then we're going to have a strong church. If we have strong families, we're going to have a strong community. But our families are struggling. It's very obvious. It's struggling. Why is it struggling? It's struggling because of our culture. Now, I'm not a pastor. If you've been here for any time, you get this, you know this. I'm not one of these pastors that just gets up and preaches against everything going on in our culture, because I could be busy doing that all the time. I really try to be proactive and go teach God's word and be proactive about it, not just reacting to everything everybody's doing. We know our culture's screwed up, right? Anybody in denial with that? You need counseling. All right, our culture's screwed up. It's flipped upside down. There are some things, let me just get on one soapbox, if you don't mind. There are some things that we do that I'm constantly scratching my head wondering, is anybody thinking this thing through? Is anybody thinking past this year or next year? Are we thinking down the road? And there's some things going on right now in our culture, just as an example of the screwed upness of our culture. This whole transgender thing. This whole thing about, allowing men in the women's bathrooms and stuff like that. Come on, is anybody thinking about this stuff? Let's be real. I know that may offend some of you, but get over it. Honestly, nobody's thinking this stuff through. There's a lot of things in our culture that's so twisted, so whacked out. And here we are, we're raising our kids in it. And now, this isn't the culture that you and I grew up in, is it? It's not. But our culture was screwed up too. And so one of our big struggles, one of our challenges in parenting, it's not your ex. I know there's probably some struggle. That's not your biggest obstacle. Our biggest obstacle is our culture. And how do we deal with that? How do we thrive as a family in our culture? Well, I believe you can do it. I believe people have been doing it for a long time, for years. Because being a dysfunctional family is not something new. If you thought, man, we're the first ones. No, you're not. Dysfunctional families have been around since the very beginning. Adam and Eve, right? Should I say anything else? Adam and Eve. Look at the first two brothers. Talk about conflict resolution. Remember the story? Cain's conflict resolution was, I'm going to kill my brother, We've had dysfunctional families from the beginning. You look through Scripture, one of the cool things about the Bible is, and one of the reasons I believe that the Bible is true and accurate, is that it doesn't paint the characters as perfect. Because if it did, then something would be wrong. But it shows the dysfunctionality of people, of families. But it also shows the answer, the solution. Not that everything is fixed and every family is perfect, but it shows God's solution. See, because your family is God's invention. Your family is God's invention. Say it with me. My family is God's invention. It's His idea, and it's a great idea. See, it's your faith is your family's intervention. See, family's God's invention, but it's your faith that is your family's intervention. So we all come from different situations, experiences. And I know some of your stories. I don't know everybody's story and what your family was like, but we've got people here this morning, probably like my wife, who grew up in a very healthy environment, very traditional family. Both of her parents loved the Lord and went to church. She grew up going to church and great examples. She was an only child, so she never experienced what the rest of us experienced with siblings. But she grew up in a good, solid environment. And then there's the other spectrum, or the other part, the other side of the spectrum. And that's, very unhealthy environment. I know that you're here this morning. And so when we talk about family, it's hard for you to think about that. It's because it digs up emotion. But it's important for us to move on and understand. See, because family is not a bad idea. It's not something that we should despise. It's God's invention. It's His idea. It's an incubator for life. God designed it perfectly. Now, what screwed it up? Well, sin screwed it up. See, dysfunctionality entered the world through sin. And as long as we have sin, as long as we live in a sinful world, and we will until Christ returns, as long as we live in this sinful world, we're going to have dysfunctionality. There is no perfect family. There will be no perfect family. But that's not an excuse. It's not something that we can just say, well, okay, we're all screwed up, and we throw in the towel. Because there's something inside of our hearts, and I believe God puts it there. There's something inside of our hearts that wants something better for our family, right? We want to step it up a little bit. There's something in us that says, you know what, I think I can do a little better. Now, that doesn't mean disrespect to our parents, our family. And for the sake of if my family's watching, this is not disrespect. But there were some things that I believe I could step it up a bit. I can build on what my parents did. I can improve. This is some of our challenge, because when we start talking about improving our family, that must mean that then our family wasn't that great. No, that's not the point. It's let's build on this thing. No matter what your situation, if it was a great environment like my wife grew up in, or if it was an environment where it was very unhealthy, there's room for improvement. There's room for growth. There's room to step things up. And that's the challenge we face today. The challenge is the culture that we live in is constantly influencing us. I got off track a little bit. Let me go back. First dysfunctional family, Adam and Eve. That's where it all started. But God provided a solution. His invention is the family. And our solution, or our intervention, is our faith. Our faith in Him, our relationship with Him, our trust in Him. That is our intervention. See, culture seems to constantly be working against us. It's constantly undermining the things in our lives, the decisions, the processes, everything about our lives. And this is important for us to understand, because parents, we're going to have to, at some point, we're going to have to be fully engaged with our kids' lives. Because if we just allow our culture to influence and we're not engaged, we're going to make some huge, huge mistakes. We're going to look back and we're going to have heaps and heaps of guilt. We've got to be willing to engage our children. So God provided a solution. Let me look at John chapter 17, because it's a great passage of Scripture. Jesus is praying for His disciples, and this is important for us to understand because, culture influences us. It's moving us in a direction. We're going somewhere, and we're being moved along by our culture. Culture is like this mix of philosophy. It's a blending of philosophies that is just pumped into us and at us constantly. It's always been there. We've always had culture, but the culture is always changing. You realize, right? And so how do we make it in this life? Do we just insulate our families? Do we pull away from culture and move to the mountains and live in a cabin and homeschool our kids and live off the land? And, no, don't do that. People do that. We've been a part of homeschool organizations quite a bit because there's been several different seasons in our family where we've homeschooled, some where they've gone to school. But when you go to these homeschool organizations, and I'm sorry if you're one of these people, I don't think we have, but when you go to a homeschool organization, sometimes the people that are there, they're different. They're out of touch, it seems like, with the rest of the world. And parents spend so much time and energy trying to insulate their kids. Don't allow them to be exposed to anything. And I get that. I understand that. Because we want to protect our kids. We want to help our kids. We don't want our kids to be, as dysfunctional as we were or whatever. We don't want them to take on our culture. So how do we balance that? When we moved into our neighborhood about 6 or so years ago, Kaylin was, I think, like 10, 11 years old. Noah was 13. And Kaylin comes in one day and she says, Dad, I don't want to play with those kids anymore. I'm like, well, why? Why don't you want to play? Because my kids are both outdoorsy people. They just do not care to be inside. Like, why don't you want to play with them? She says, because they cuss. And so my initial reaction, what almost was my reaction, was to say, you're right. Yeah, we don't be around those kids because they got filthy mouths. What really was going on was I don't want to have to deal with my kids dropping the F-bomb at the house. You know what I'm saying? All of a sudden, their words start popping out of their mouth because they're learning. And I felt like the Lord checked me. As hard as it was. Because we don't talk like that in our house. And for as hard as it is to allow your kids to knowingly be exposed to something, it was a struggle that I was going through. And I said, you know what, Kaylin? Who's going to tell them about Jesus if you don't? Here we are. We've been missionaries. We were living in Europe as missionaries. We've given our lives for this. And so do we pull back? And, it was a real struggle. And I know some of you parents, you struggle with that. I'm not saying expose your kids to everything. Overexpose them and just, hopefully they'll survive. You've got to be engaged in the process. And so there were times when Kaylin would come home and she'd come home with a new word. And so we have to teach, My kids learned all the words in German and I didn't even know what they were. Like, what? I won't, Of course, Chuck was the one that usually taught them. But anyway, just so. But, you hear a new word, and this is a great opportunity for us to train our children, to work with them and help them understand. Because a lot of times we teach our kids things and we just say, don't do that. We scare them. Like, don't do that. Well, why? Because we don't talk like that. And you're like, oh, you really prepared them for life, They're prepared. Because once they get out of your house, guess what? They're going to use that language again or whatever it is that they're learning. And so it causes us to engage them and talk to them and say, you know what? Here's why that's a bad word. Here's what that word means. It takes time. Parenting is not something that just happens by accident. I mean, we have our culture working against us. If you've ever watched any of these National Geographic type shows, wilderness type shows, you see salmon who spawn, who go upriver. Do you know they spend 2 years out in the ocean? And then they head back and they travel against the flow. You see them jumping over these waterfalls. I mean, they're working hard to get to a place that will be a safe environment to lay their eggs. And it's very similar in parenting. We work hard to provide an environment that is safe for our kids. And so we got our culture working against us, and our kids get exposed to things. And how do we help them process through that? We've got to engage our kids. Listen, we're going to talk about a lot of things over the next 5 weeks. Next week is going to be about time, and but we've got to engage. I know we're busy. I know life happens. And I know you started out, those of you who have kids, you started out with a lot of dreams. As you looked at that baby, brand new, you brought him home, and there's just, they can't do anything but just, ah. And you looked at him, and you just, all these dreams of what you wanted for this child. You wanted something better. You wanted something better for them. I get it. I was there. I'm still there. They're not laying there, but I want something better. There were things that I experienced growing up. I don't want to repeat that. I know it's hard to talk about those things, because in talking about them and in saying we want to improve on our family, it's like disrespect to our families growing up, and it's not. There's things we want to improve on, but we've got to be engaged in that process. We've got to help our kids, not just when it comes to when they learn new words, but when they get exposed to new ideas and new philosophies, and they're constantly getting exposed to those things. And how do you process those? We don't do that. Okay, but why? If you think just because we don't do that as a family is good enough, you're going to have to be engaged. And so our culture, how do we live? How do we help our kids and live counter culture? Jesus talked about, or had a prayer. He prayed for his disciples in John chapter 17. Let's look at it. It's a great example for us. I've given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world any more than I am of the world. My prayer is not that you take them out of the world, but that you protect them from the evil one. They are not of the world, even as I am not of it. Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I've sent them into the world. Now I know Jesus is praying for his disciples in this passage of Scripture, but it's so applicable to our lives and our situation as parents. Is that the goal here, and this is important because a lot of times maybe you've heard the phrase, we're in the world but not of it. That comes from this passage of Scripture. The goal in this prayer is not that they are not of the world. Sometimes our parenting is to try to, make sure our kids are not of the world. Guess what? If we're following Christ, we're not of the world. The whole goal here is Jesus is saying, hey, just like you sent me, I'm sending them. It's a releasing. Are our children going to be ready when we release them? And what is it that we instill in them during this process? Jesus, he said, I'm not praying that you remove them from the world, that you take them out, but that you would help them, that you would protect them from the evil one. And so that's our goal. We're in this world, but we're not of this world. We're not of this world. We're in it. And how do we instill in our kids things that are going to help them so that as we release them, they can make wise decisions? They've learned how to process. They've learned how to apply God's word to their lives. Our faith is our family's intervention. Our family is God's invention, but our faith is our family's intervention. It's our faith that intervenes. It's our faith that changes. I love to see families that have just been radically changed because of God's love, because of His grace. And I see it all the time. I just talked with a couple after the first service. Some of you may know Brian and Katrina Peaks. A family that just a few years, maybe not even a few years, maybe a little over a year now, started coming to Vive. Hadn't been to church, both of them, since they were teenagers, Brian and Katrina. Made some decisions, made some choices. Hey, wasn't the best thing. But here they are, and God has totally changed their family. I know people don't like to be called out, especially Vic and Jazz, but I see a family like that Victor and Jasmine, who's God has just done some amazing things in their life. We watched Ashley get proposed to on the stage a couple weeks ago. Just cool to see God changing families. See, it's our faith that is our family's intervention. No matter where your family has come from, no matter what the situation. My situation, in my opinion, was less than desirable. It was a good family, I got good parents, but not something I want to repeat. And when I got married, my hopes, my dreams were to not repeat a lot of the things that I saw. It's to build on that, to kind of use what my parents gave me as a stepping stone. But then life happens, right? But it's my faith in God, it's my relationship with Him that has made all the difference in the world. It's not so much just that we have hopes and dreams, because I think every person, when they have children, every person, I think, they think, I want to do better for my kids. I can't imagine anybody saying, I want to screw my kids up. If that's you, you need counseling. Okay? I don't think anybody thinks that. And so we all start out with good intentions, right? And then our culture is constantly moving us and influencing us. But it's our faith that is very powerful. It's the reset button. Now, it doesn't make us perfect parents. It doesn't mean, hey, you begin a relationship with Jesus today and your family is going to be perfect within 90 days or your money back, right? It's not going to happen. But our faith is a very real power in our lives. And I'm not talking about just coming to church, although it starts there. Church isn't just a place you go to, right? It's a place you belong. I'm talking about opening our faith, releasing our faith every day. A great example of a person whose life was totally changed. The trajectory of his family, of his life, was totally changed is Abraham. Some of you may know about Abraham. Some of you may remember the story, or the song, not the story. Father Abraham had many sons. How many of you know that song? Many sons had Father Abraham, right arm, left arm. It's the song that never ends. Don't sing it, please. I know it's my daughter. Somebody shut her up. But, Abraham is a great example of that. Here's a guy who is just a normal guy. It's not like he put his name in the lottery and got his number drawn and God says, okay, I'm going to, you're the lucky one. But it was his response to God. It was his belief in God that the Bible says was credited to him as righteousness, as right standing with God. And so it was his faith. And we've been talking about faith the last 3 weeks and not stopping in our faith. But it was his faith that got God's attention. In Genesis chapter 17, it says, when Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you and will greatly increase your numbers. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations, and I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abram, as for you, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. So here's a guy just like everyone else, except his faith. His faith intervened. His faith made a difference. His faith got God's attention. And it changed the trajectory of his life, of his family. Now, are kings going to come out of your lineage? Probably not. You know, we live in America. It's not going to happen. That's not the point. But can God change the trajectory of your family? Can He take what maybe you grew up in that was less than desirable, and you had these dreams and the desires in your heart to step it up and to do something more for your family than what you experienced? Is God able to do that? Absolutely. It's your faith. Your faith in Him. It's your trust in Him. It's your relationship with Him that makes the difference. No matter where you're at when it comes to family. You may be a single parent here this morning and you're thinking, man, what I need is a man. What you need is a faith. You say, hey, we're blended family. We've got all this. What you need is a faith. You may be a traditional family, which just sounds weird to me to even say that. But, no matter where you're at, you need a faith that is rock solid. You need a faith that is active. You need a faith that is out of the box. This is the box. Listen, we can all do this. We can raise our hands, we can hallelujah, we can, but it's what do we do at home? How do we let that faith out at home? How do we activate that faith at work? What are our kids seeing? What are they learning? Because the family is that incubator. They're learning. They're learning how to respond in situations. They're learning character. So as they see you deal with people, they're learning. Now I know that might send a shiver down your spine, and it might start to stir up regret. Yes, I'm right there with you. Have we made mistakes? Has somebody, is there a perfect family? No, there's not a perfect family. But can we improve on what we've experienced? Absolutely. And it's because of our faith. Our faith intervenes. Our faith changes the trajectory of our families. But only if we let it out. If you keep it in the box, your family is going to despise your faith. If all you experience faith-wise is here, and this doesn't translate to your house, to your job, your kids are going to grow up and they're going to despise this. I'll guarantee it. They don't want nothing to do with fake, right? Would you? No, you wouldn't. And I know that's a lot of pressure. I know that, means I've got to step it up. It means I've got to be engaged. It means I got to make some changes. It means you need to activate your faith. You mean your faith, just let it out of the box. Start to pray with your family. You may think, man, we're too far gone. We're down that road. Start praying with your family. As awkward as it might seem to gather them around and say, hey, come here, come on. All right, yeah. Let's have prayer together. Can we pray this morning before we all go our separate ways? Can we do that? Can we gather the kids together before school? Can we just pray for them? Maybe you're a single person. You say, man, I'm kind of by myself. Well, pray. Don't wait. Don't wait for somebody else to join the picture. Start laying that foundation now. If you're older and you've got kids that are grown and out of the house, and maybe you've got grandkids, man, what a great influence you have. This is something that's so important as we go forward in this series, and I'm wrapping it up, is you got to understand you are the single most influential person in your children's lives. Culture is not. As powerful as culture is, as it's coming from all different angles, you are the most influential person in your children's lives. And we're going to talk more about that. But if you feel like, no, I've kind of lost my voice, what's going to happen is you are going to throw in the towel and you're going to quit. You're going to check out of parenting. Don't check out. Let me borrow a phrase from last week's message. Don't stop. Keep moving forward. Amen. Would you stand with me? Kind of like at the Golden Globes or whatever, and, the music starts, time for me to shut up. Your family's God's invention. And your faith is your family's intervention. It's the thing that's going to change the trajectory of your family, no matter where you're at. It's your faith and how you live it out. Let's pray. With your heads bowed and your eyes closed, I want to ask you a simple question. Do you have a faith that is a foundation in your life? Do you have a relationship with God? Maybe you're here this morning and you say, you know what? I really don't. I believe in God, but I don't have that foundation. I don't have that faith, that trust, that relationship with God that I've really activated in my life. But I'd like to. It starts there. I'd love to pray for you. Nobody's looking around. It's just me, you, and God. You just say, Pastor Randy, would you pray for me this morning that I would begin a relationship with God, that I would activate that faith in my life? Would you just lift up your hand so I can pray for you? I want to begin my faith. I want to activate it. I want a relationship with God. Father, I thank you. Thank you for your grace. It is so amazing and powerful in our lives. God, it changes us. Changes the way we think. Changes our actions, our lives. Lord, I just pray this morning for those who have lifted their hands that are responding to you, that you would reveal yourself in a powerful way. If you prayed that prayer, would you just let me pray for you and lead you in a prayer. Let it come from your heart. Just say, Jesus, come into my life. Forgive me. Make me new. God, today I want to activate my faith. Today I want to begin a relationship with you. Today I give you my heart. I need you to forgive me, to make me new. In Jesus' name. If you're a parent this morning, would you just lift up your hand? Just lift it real high. I want to pray for you. Father, God, I thank you that you've blessed us with children. God, I thank you for allowing us to be just privileged to be parents. We ask, Lord, right now for your grace. We ask for your wisdom. We ask for your strength. We ask, God, that you would take our faith, our trust. Lord, help us to live it out daily. Help us to live it out at home. Help us to live it out at work. Help us to live it out each and every day. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Let's worship the Lord. I'll be right back.
Sing if I told you. And if I told you my story, you would hear hope that wouldn't let go. And if I told you my story, you would hear love that never gave up. And if I told you my story, you would hear life, but it wasn't mine. If I should speak, then let it be of the grace that is greater than all my sin, of when justice was served and when mercy wins, of the kindness of Jesus that draws me in. Oh, to tell you my story is to tell of Him. And if I told you my story, you would hear victory over the enemy. And if I told you my story, you would hear freedom that was won for me. And if I told you my story, you would hear life overcome the grave. If I should speak, then let it be of the grace that is greater than all my sin, of when justice was served and when mercy wins, of the kindness of Jesus that draws me in. Oh, to tell you my story is to tell of Him. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. For the grace that is greater than all my sin, of when justice was served and when mercy wins, of the kindness of Jesus that draws me in. Oh, to tell you my story is to tell of the grace that is greater than all my sin, of when justice was served and when mercy wins, of the kindness of Jesus that draws me in. Oh, to tell you my story is to tell of Him. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long.